This is Family Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Liz Sjaastad for the first time on the show. Welcome to the Family Electric Ghost podcast.
Thank you.
How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm really happy to be here. Looking
Well,
forward to it.
well, it's always fun to talk to creative people. You're a writer. You're the best-selling author of a memoir, and we're going to talk about it. Um, the book was "You're Too Young to Understand," right?
Right.
And we're going to get into that whole process of finding humanity in your parents is kind of like the topic, but we'll kind of spin around your whole process, how you wrote your book. And a couple of questions before we get to the heart of that is I ask every guest, what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I came to creative writing late in life. I had a whole different career. So what initially let's talk about this book in particular. What initially motivated me to start writing was grief and um, exploring my parents and trying to kind of put the pieces together of their lives. I felt like I couldn't understand myself unless I understood them better. And so initially in my creative process for the book, it was really a curiosity and, um, and a catharsis with that grief. I think at each stage of my writing process, with the book, I keep saying with the book because I also write personal essays on other topics, and
Mhm.
those are motivated by different things. Typically, my children who are poking my buttons, but with the book at the second stage, sort of after the motivation changed from trying to understand my parents and also doing a little healing in the process, that catharsis, to wanting then to write it for a reader. So the motivation at that point for me was I had been altered by reading memoirs in some pretty profound ways. Um, I mean, really, like all my cells, everything changing completely by reading someone else's journey, because of the connections that I made with my life and their words. And so my next motivation, my next hope was to create a book that could do that for other people. And and so then it was all about um, the revision, the revision process, and how do I make this as real and and convey the things that I want it to convey for a reader.
Well, I think it's very cathartic when I talk to a lot of creative people that the act of doing the art there that they devote themselves to is a very cathartic activity. It's like art therapy for a lot of artists.
Yeah.
They would do it. I mean, especially musicians, we will play music whether we make money or not. We just love
Yeah.
playing music.
Yeah.
And I find writers will tell me that too. It's like whether this one hits or not, I'm going to write it
I'm gonna write.
because I have to write
Exactly.
it.
And it's so funny because I just kind of found this later in life. I hadn't considered myself an artist, and so until very recently, actually. A- And I'm trying to share with people who are struggling with something in their life, and maybe they want therapy, or maybe they don't, or maybe the therapy's not working. And I'm just like, have you tried writing? How about journaling?
Mhm.
And it wasn't until recently that I recognized that that doesn't work for everyone. Like
Yeah.
it really is um, a certain type of person or a certain type of artistry that finds that catharsis through writing. And so that was a fun moment for me to also, you know, add that to my identity.
Well, do you find that vulnerability is usually the thing that is like the price of entry into like the arts? And some people have a hard time with being vulnerable and authentic. And
Yes.
if they can't get past it, then it's, if they try it, it doesn't ring true. They can't. It really won't speak to them, and it doesn't. Like if it doesn't work, it doesn't actually get the ball rolling, because to get the ball rolling, it's kind of like the Victorians had this idea for like the looking glass self. That I
Yeah.
always got into was like they'd like look if you look in that mirror and you can actually put that into your art, that's going to be the essence of creativity. That's the essence of art
That's
is
fascinating.
to be able to do that, but not everybody can do it.
Not everyone can do it. And sometimes when you can do something, you don't recognize it as unique. You assume that everyone can.
Yeah, that's a problem too, because like your secret sauce is your individual story. Like,
Hmm.
and when artists are able to figure out, there's like, yeah, Shakespeare, there's all these great writers, there's like, like Wordsworth and Blake, but like what you have to say is equally important to the world if you believe it. Like you have to believe it.
Hmm.
And that's like the price of entry
Yeah.
is to believe that the story you're telling is gonna like resonate with the world on a frequency, and everybody's gonna like get pulled into it.
And that I think that is where a lot of artists really struggle with the angst of that. Like, is this of value to other people?
But I think what you're, from what I've read about, like what you're dealing with, like the stigma around mental illness, and
Mhm.
taking it dead on with a personal story of your own family, and schizophrenia, and the issues you had with alcoholism with your father.
Mhm.
These are hard things for people to take on. Like some people don't like to take on things that don't that maybe aren't like the pretty story or the happy story. Like, like the story that we have to get into uncomfortable truths or situations, and like understand it, like to understand what was going on in your parents' lives, to kind of understand what is the story.
Mhm. I agree. And I think that when when you go there though, like for me the payoff, like I said, like reading other people's vulnerable stories who have gone there and have been, I don't want to say brave because I honestly don't feel the bravery. Like other people say, "Oh, it's so brave to write this memoir," but it doesn't feel that way to me, but I do feel like, when people go there, it's just so worth it in terms of creating, I don't want to say community, but like creating that chemistry with a reader on the writing side of things,
Mhm.
that there's this I'm not, except for a few people who, would message me after every chapter with with their responses. I don't, you're not in dialogue with the reader while
Yeah.
they're reading, but there is a chemistry that I feel happens. And I think on a bigger scale, like you said, my quest to help reduce stigma and discrimination for people with serious mental illness and their families is that the more we share these stories, the more we talk about them and recognize that we all have them, or we know someone that has them,
Yeah.
that it's comforting, but it's also like, okay, this is an issue in society that we're turning away from. And so I don't know. I just feel like the payoff of those two things, both at the individual level and potentially at a larger level with enough people talking and trying to create change, is worth, the hard feelings of going through the writing.
Well, when I was in college, I was a sociology major, and we
Me
kind of,
too.
yeah, we studied like the microcosm and the macrocosm. Like in a microcosm, it's like what happens on the individual family level, and then how it kind of bleeds both ways between the microcosm and the macrocosm. They go both ways; they affect each other.
Yeah.
So when you have societal issues that are in the microcosm, they're in the macrocosm. And so when you have something like mental illness, is an overall, it's a family issue.
Hmm.
It's a societal issue, and like how society handles it with the social mores and norms and things that people, want to fit people in the box, or people want to show an outward face that is like what you want to show to the world versus what you really reveal to the world.
Right.
And it's more, I think, helpful to society when you actually tell stories that can resonate and let people know that they're not alone. Because I think sometimes the general society will try to say, "Oh, it's everything's in the box." When you find out there's a lot of neurodivergent people, there's a
Right.
lot of people that actually have gone through struggles that are very similar to yours. And,
Right.
yeah, and then when you read or you look at painting, you look at art, you can feel
Hmm.
people trying to express these things.
Exactly. Yeah, I had a gentleman in his 60s who read my book and um, was really moved by it. Um, it allowed him to access some, things about his own childhood and his relationship with his parents. Um, and it allowed him to process those things, he said, in healthy ways, in
Mhm.
ways that like he wouldn't have gone there without having, another, um, without having read it and learned about it from someone else's perspective, and just being able to put compassion into the equation, which was actually something I learned through writing the book,
Mhm.
finding that compassion for my parents, because your parents are like, you know, I don't know. For some of us, our parents are an alcoholic and a schizophrenic. For a long time, they're these labels because they're not delivering on the world's like
Caretaker.
promise of taking care of you.
Yeah.
And I know it's just not. I mean, I know it happens in many families for many reasons, but so I think that's part of what makes this book resonate with more people than just the people that have, the specific situation that I do, is that um, uh, you get hopefully to a point in your life where you can, well, through writing, I got there through, I had to create whole human characters out of
Yeah.
the people in my life uh, that I wasn't happy with. And that included my parents and my brother. And in doing so, because readers don't believe you unless you've created, they don't believe the story. They don't buy into the story. It's not an interesting story if you don't have complex, multifaceted human beings
Mhm.
represented. So in memoir, you need to do that with your family. And so that was a really interesting part of the process for me, is finding scenes and characteristics that would portray these people in my life in a variety of ways, not just in the ways that my memory, because your memory is sort of,
Filter.
they kind of
Filter.
rule your
Yeah. You,
definition. Yeah.
yeah. You got to filter. I mean, you're their child. You're filtering through maybe the fact that like they didn't live up to your initial like assessments. Like, well, I think a father and mother should do this, and
Hmm.
then you're living in like what they're doing that. So then you have to figure out, well, I want to dive into this beyond my filter.
Right.
And that's where you take the like being a writer, the artist in you is like I need the multi-dimension. I need to find out.
Yeah.
Like these aren't just one-dimensional people. There's a lot more going on, right? Is that what you kind of unlayered the onion?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then I also had to do some research. I mean, for my dad, he was born in Russia. He was a child during World War II. His his family was, they were in a prison camp,
Wow.
and his parents were like making bricks in a factory in Germany, and they were liberated, I guess, by the Allies and put in refugee camps. And his father was sent back to Russia, and then promptly Stalin sent any soldier that was taken prisoner to Siberia. to,
Yeah.
yeah. And so his mother remarried, and then they made their way to the United States via Belgium. And so, like, he saw the worst. I mean, the trauma in his life and his childhood. So I researched a lot of that because he didn't speak about it much to us. And, but I had enough from conversations with his mother and through conversations with my sister who had spoken to my dad about it all, that, you start to piece it together with history and
Yeah.
like locations, and then you're recognizing really what was going on in those
And the
situations.
trauma
And
of the third
he,
war, of the Second World War. I mean, he's going through all that.
he saw death and torture. He was on marches led by German Nazis when he was 5 years old, going through snow like 10 miles. And his mom told him, like, if you don't keep up, Vasily, I can't,
Help
you're
you.
going to die. They're going
Hmm.
to kill you. And so this was my dad's life. And so, yeah, he carried that stuff into his adulthood. And and then with my mother, I learned a lot about, yeah, I did the research on schizophrenia. And this was really all while I was writing the book. So it was a really transformative thing for me to see my parents differently.
And in that generation, really probably didn't believe in therapy. Like,
No,
didn't believe in trying to like talk about it.
no.
Even to the family members, they don't talk about it. So it's so much like we're like all these things getting pushed down,
Yeah.
and then then you start to realize like you're on layer the onion. It's like, wow, there's a lot of trauma from this like period of time where the world was like it's a world war.
Hmm.
There's a lot of barriers that were broken. There's a lot of rules that were broken. A lot of like and broken people as a result of governments like going into this fight. And you can look at the validity of the fight, but the fact is, like when you're the victims, the collateral damage
Yes, the
of
ramifications of war, exactly. Like we don't, I mean, some of us do, but like we don't think about that. Like it's generations of damage to our people. When you think about inherited trauma or just like his life and his inability to parent and whatever I got genetically from the inherited trauma, it's like it goes on. Like it takes several generations then to heal. And this is one family of millions of families that have been affected by war.
yeah. And that's the problem. I think a lot of people that do the planning, like
Hmm.
the balance of power that happens in the world where places like the common person, the common you know like citizen can't impact directly. Like indirectly, we can say, hey, I don't want to support somebody that's going to march to that kind of beat.
Hmm.
Or you can get tricked into thinking that makes you strong if you march to that beat.
Right.
So then you wonder, like, there are generations of people getting conned into thinking, yeah, let's repeat the lessons of the 30s, like we didn't learn it.
Well, yeah, let's just watch the news today.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. It's like because
Hmm.
people don't want to think about the things that make them uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Because like if you stay in a box, like if somebody tells you something that's outside your world vision, your world view, it's very uncomfortable to like deal with that reality. So you'll say that's not reality.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, getting back to like what artists are comfortable with and what other people, not other people, but like some people are comfortable or not comfortable, more comfortable accessing those feelings and allowing us to recognize that, yes, this isn't right. This
Mhm.
is really uncomfortable and doing something about it, or at least not being okay with it. And others, like you said, just feel strong from following along to something they think is going in a direction that they believe in.
Yeah, there's just nobody. The empathy is the factor. I think people have to understand. Like I'm a child of the '70s, and there was this kind of thing growing up. I was, a child of the '70s.
Me too.
Um, in the '70s, it seemed like people were like, hey, we're trying to find this enlightenment. It's kind of like the Enlightenment age of what was going on with the Romantic poets. In with the Victorian area, people were
Yeah.
trying to find this kind of this mindset of like, hey, let's have art and science and the empathy and understanding, and people writing and thinkers,
Mhm. Mhm.
philosophers, artists, people just like trying to come up with a vision for not destructive progress but forward progress.
Mhm.
And now we have people who it's like, no, no, that's too weak.
Mhm.
Like, you can't have empathy or compassion for your fellow man
Mhm.
because that's weak. And to
Yep,
show
and
weakness is
let's
very strong.
dismantle the systems that allow for that
Yeah.
empathy and creativity and growth. Yeah.
And this mental illness is a big problem in our country,
Mhm.
in terms of people don't want to address it. Well, then they'll address it in certain ways. They make these big, like, shut down all the institutions, but not put up anything to replace them.
Right.
Then we have massive homeless, like, crisis in the states. We
Mhm.
have like a crisis since, like, whenever every situation COVID made it worse. Mental health is a big issue, but guess what? When you have your health plan, doesn't really pay for it. So it's like so if you're like, mental health is not like, if you're diabetic, they'll give you your insulin.
Mhm.
But if you're somebody with a mental health program, you might run out of coverage.
Right.
They might say, well, we cut it off at this is that max coverage. We're going to do this. It's like, would you cut off my coverage if have a heart problem or
Mhm.
diabetes or cancer?
Yeah, for whatever reason, we have separated the mind and the body, and I, I understand some of the reasons, but ultimately, they're all connected. Where it's medical health, they're biological disorders, whether they're in the brain or in the heart or
It's
the
all the body. It's all
signals.
the whole of the human form is your mental state, your spiritual state, your soul state, your physical. It's like a bunch of like pillars to a
Mhm.
human. If you only take care of your physical, you don't take care of your mental, you're not going to be balanced,
Right.
and you're going to fall off. Like, so we have multiple facets, but then we have tendencies to only work on one at a time or over focus on one
Hmm.
or the other. But I think that's really interesting. Where, like, when you started to dive into like the concept of what's going on with mental illness within your own family, within the microcosm,
Yeah.
like, it's something that you decided to take on. Was that a
Yeah.
hard decision to do that?
To take it on in terms of writing it for myself, it wasn't hard at all. Well, it was hard, but it was therapeutic enough that the pain was worth it. And then I got to really, like, I enjoyed learning how to write better, and I had a community of writers, and year after year, there were more rewards from the writing process. What was hard for me was the decision to, whether or not to put it out into the world.
Mhm.
I, um, yeah, I think that there were a lot of obstacles there that were self-imposed, and so I had to work through a few years of that before deciding that my book it would be worth it to have it out there.
So you had like a writing community, like the beta readers or other authors
Oh
that
yeah, I
helped
had
you.
writing groups and writing classes, and in Minneapolis we have the Loft Literary Center, which is really a gem in
Mm.
the world, and I think a lot of people recognize that. And I was able to take a lot of classes there. I received a fellowship there, the Loft Mentor Series Fellowship, one year, and I was able to learn from the mentors of Kiese Lehman and Annika Fajardo, and it was super beneficial to um, to have my work out there and reviewed by other people. But I continue to think that, it might not be good enough, right?
Hmm.
A little bit of imposter syndrome there that a lot of people have. I'm not alone in that, but also, it's a personal story too. So you're putting your writing out there in a big way for the first time. I had a lot of essays published, but the book, which goes really deep because a book can do that, and then so it's the writing, and then also just the revealing of our family story.
Yeah,
Not,
that's a hard thing. That in itself is like the permission structure for you to reveal your family.
yeah,
And yeah, you wonder like, is there gonna be pushback from your family? Am I gonna feel uncomfortable about having to like represent this in the world? Like you get interviewed, you get people write articles about it. Like you have to deal with this is your work. Do you take it personal if somebody says they don't like it?
right.
Somebody wants to get in an argument about it. Now you have to defend your piece of work, and
That was what I was worried about. I
yeah,
had
that's a hard thing to deal
I
with.
had a couple of years of, just really, tough thinking and emotional strain around that. But I'm happy to report it's been fantastic. The book came out in May, and I, you know, I haven't had to suffer the things that I thought I might have to suffer. It's all been
Mhm.
super positive, and yeah, after 10 years of writing this thing, it's done really well.
Wow,
So.
so 10 years, like a decade to get it done. Well, that's some work it just takes. That's what it takes. Like
Mhm.
some pieces of work can happen without like a lot of. I mean, it's a lot of effort, but
Mhm.
sometimes things happen on a shorter time frame. Cause it depends on where somebody is. And that you can't put any project on the same scale. Like
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And there were a couple of years where I didn't even touch it. I mean, it
Mhm.
was always on my mind, and it was always like on my back and, weighing me down, telling me, I'm here, you've got to finish me. And so, yeah, I did. And I think that if I hadn't published it, it would still be doing that to me. It would still be weighing me down and, chattering in my head about why am I not out in the world. So I think I've gotten a lot of peace actually from publishing it than had I
Yeah,
not.
that's like the freeing moment. Like when you take your work and it give like you give birth to your work, like and you put it out in the world, and then it's like living on its own.
Right.
And then you're like, wow, it can stand on its own.
Yeah.
And you're like it's like it's just an interesting experience when you make that first decision to put something into the ether and give it to the world. And then law of attraction, you never know where it's gonna go. Like if like a lot of times you have the worst fear of most artists, oh, everybody's gonna hate it, nobody's gonna like it, nobody's gonna listen to it, nobody's gonna read it, nobody's gonna
Right.
be attracted to it. And then you find out that was a lot of that stuff is in your head, you
Yeah.
know.
Oh,
And
yeah. Well, so that was funny that you say that because I was like, I would either be super worried that nobody would read it. Like I'd put all this effort, get it published, and then nobody reads it. And then I was like, well, what if people read it? That's
too many
even
people read
worse.
too many people read it. Then you're like, it's like then you gotta go on the shows and
Yeah.
talk about it and like, can I handle that feedback of like you get into that like when you're promoting like in
Oh, yeah.
order
I
to
was
do
at a
your work.
bookstore. I was at a bookstore in Paraga's bookstore in Ely, Minnesota, a couple weekends ago during doing a meet and greet, and it was a big weekend for this small town of Ely, kind of near the Boundary Waters, and it was Blueberry Fest, and people were, they were just filing through, and I'm like, well, this is the perfect weekend to have my meet and greet because there's so many people in this bookstore and in this community out, out and about, and this woman comes up to me and she's like, what's that book about? And I told her, and she said, what does your mother say about that?
Oh yeah.
And honestly, though, Phantom, that's been the worst I've gotten so
It
far.
was, yeah.
I've just, knock on wood all over the place. There's been a wonderful reception in terms of reviews and um, but again, I live in Minnesota, so I feel like everyone's being Minnesota nice, but I, I don't think so.
That's awesome. So are there any plans to take it like outside of Minnesota?
Oh, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been down. I think it's reached other countries as well, but it's reached all over the U.S. I was down in my hometown in Illinois, where I grew up, Galesburg, Illinois, for my 40-year high school reunion, which coincided like 1 month after the release of the book. So much of the book takes place in Galesburg,
Oh wow.
and of course, my teenage, there a lot of my teenage escape antics are highlighted in a couple of chapters. And so I thought it was going to be really interesting to see the folks that I went to school with who had maybe read the book or at least read some excerpts about it. So yeah, I was down in Galesburg, Illinois for that at the Wordsmith Bookshop on Main Street doing a signing, and so that was super fun as well.
So we dive deeper into the book. Like when did you actually know there was something going on with your mom? Like at what age did you realize it?
Yeah, so I start the book at the kind of at the time that I recognized something was different, though it was in retrospect, because I was 7 years old and we were living in France. My father was a professor. He spoke multiple languages, and that college that he was a professor at, Knox College, had like a program with this town in France where it was kind of a reciprocity thing. So he was a professor there for a year, and we were all there as well. But things kind of fell apart there. So his drinking ramped up big time, and I think it was because he was near all sorts of World War II sites and memories, and things went really south with he and my mom. And so that's when I first, in retrospect, noticed that she was started hallucinating and having delusions and sharing them with me. And then we didn't get a diagnosis for her, however. My dad's alcoholism, it was a little easier to talk about that, but you were a child of the 70s too. Like even in the 80s, alcoholism was really, I mean, we talked about it, but it was still stigmatized in a big
Yeah,
way.
a lot of people
And
didn't recognize
so it was a big deal for us to be talking about his drinking excessively, but no one talked about mental illness. If they did, it was like, oh, well, that woman had a, you know, breakdown
it.
or
Mhm.
something. Like there was never, so I know, we've all learned and society has changed, but it wasn't, and she had all of the symptoms of schizophrenia, but we did not get her to a doctor for a diagnosis until she was 48. I was 20 and in college, and my sister was 26.
Oh,
And my
wow.
sister initiated the efforts. She had moved away, kind of came back and saw things from a fresh perspective, and was like, we really should try to do something here. And so we did get her to a doctor, and she got a diagnosis, and she spent some time getting treatment. But I don't know if you're familiar with the term anosognosia.
Mm.
Okay, this is a good one. Anosognosia, I learned about also while I was writing. It is a symptom of some illnesses, including schizophrenia, where the person with the illness does not recognize that they have it.
Mm.
So many people with schizophrenia do not believe they have schizophrenia, and it is a symptom of the illness. It's not denial. So I do believe my mother had anosognosia because we never talked about her diagnosis. She's refused treatment. And so it's really hard to help someone. I think about all the families or parents whose kids have developed schizophrenia, and the typical time frame that one develops schizophrenia for males, it's like 18 to 25. And so they're adults,
Yeah.
and their parents are still responsible, really, and yet they can't if the person has anosognosia and is refusing treatment, there's not a whole lot that can be done. There's the whole rule of if they're not an immediate danger to themselves or others. So there's a lot of obstacles to getting help for folks that have anosognosia and schizophrenia. So we had that with our mother. She wasn't dangerous. So anyway, it was very difficult to try to navigate that then. And then at the near, when she was older and starting to have dementia, that was a diagnosis that also often comes with anosognosia, but that people were willing to help us with, and we could get her someplace safe.
There was more people were willing to understand that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's like how people perceive different illnesses and how they
Yeah.
actually, how the society handles it. Because a lot of people fall through the cracks.
Right.
Like if you're like off your parents' like health insurance and you're out there as a young person and you're denying you need care, like you're not going to get any care, and the system's not going to come and just take you unless you run into law enforcement. And then you're probably not going to get.
Right. Then you're going to be incarcerated.
You're incarcerated and not to actually treated.
Yeah. And most of the, well, I don't know most, but like they say up to 50% of the people in the prison system are, have mental illness that's not being treated. The same with on the streets. And the homeless. Yeah.
And we just have a society would rather kind of like sweep them under the bridge and then move them from under the bridge to somewhere else where nobody can see them. Mm-hmm. Instead of dealing with this. It's like the things that you can't see are the things you need to see.
Right.
Things that you don't want to see or things you actually need to take dead on. It's like, and that's just a hard thing to get. Even at an individual level, it's hard. Like a societal level, it's even harder.
I think we should be at a crisis point at this situation with the mental illness and its toll on not only individuals but society and in terms of the prisons and the homeless people. And we don't seem to be like, no one's saying this is a crisis, and it's like it is.
But a lot of people, like if you're an economist, you're an actuary, they only want to understand numbers. But if you actually explain to people that you're actually affecting GDP, like this is the number they want to know. Like if you have people that are inefficiently being, are in society and they're not allowed to actualize. Right. And they're not actually where they should be. And they're actually being put in a place where they're actually costing society money and they're not actually being productive and it's not efficient. So it's like it's for all these people that are using their logic brains, it's like it's not efficient to do what you're doing.
Right.
You actually
you can make the number argument. Absolutely. You especially can use that side of your brain to do that. Not all of us artists can, but I know you can. But there is an economic argument for putting resources towards compassionate treatment.
Yeah, because we have all these people are not allocated. We found you find neurodivergence is being understood, and it's a lot of artists are neurodivergent. Mm-hmm. And they could actually got pushed into places where they weren't allowed to even do their art.
Right.
And so now more people are allowing people to understand that a lot of artists that have this kind of neurodivergence. And it's not actually, you can work on trying to get people to integrate with society, what you want the norms to be, but it's like not everybody is going to be within the box. Mm-hmm. Not everybody's in the bell curve, right? Some people, they function in a different way, and it should be okay if they're not harming anybody, if they're actually productive, if they're creative. Like, why not? Like trying to just conform for conformity's sake doesn't help anybody.
Right. Right. No, that's absolutely true.
But I think it's super important for stories like yourself, like your story, like you were thinking about, you had a little angst about it, but then you did it. Like you pushed the button, you did it. You actually got it out.
Yeah, I'm really proud of it. Can I show you the cover?
Yeah. We love to do that.
Yeah. The cover is by Mimi Bark. And so this little girl in this car, there's a scene where I'm, whenever I got caught in the car with my mom, it was a tough time. and we were in a town with a lot of railroad crossings, so I'd often get caught in there. So there's a scene, and it was kind of a rural part of Illinois. But I like this because that, you have this memoir piece that's got that bright yellow. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, there is a happy ending. There's a happy life here to be had.
So when you got comfortable with this story, do you find trying to market like a book is a whole nother thing. I talk to a lot of artists. It's like creating the work is a journey, and then marketing the work is a journey, and then then promoting
Yeah,
and get in front of people, like do what you are doing right now. You're on the podcast.
right.
Have you thought it was like, whoa, I need to actually maybe turn this into an audiobook or get a screenplay or a teleplay? Have you thought about those other steps?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Like I have in my writing group, there are some amazing stories, and super wish that they would publish, but they are watching me and my process, and are, incredibly kind, and they're saying that I'm doing such a good job, but they're like, I could not do it. I could
Hmm.
not. I'm not going to publish my book because I cannot promote it that way. So I think it is a difficult thing to expect of artists to do. I had a career, that was a little more businessy before becoming a writer, and so I think I can find my way there a little easier.
Hmm. Your
But
business skills.
yeah, yeah, I did organization development and a lot of recruiting and working with small companies and um, social entrepreneurs. It was a lot of fun. But anyway, in terms of like next steps with this, I am going to do an audiobook. It's funny that you brought that up. I start that this weekend. We're going to do kind of a test run. I'm going to try reading it myself and see how
Mhm.
that sounds, how that works out. I know a lot of people read books that way now,
Yeah.
that they're not buying a hard copy, and so and that's me sometimes as well. If I'm on a road trip, I do audiobooks. So I think I'll capture maybe a bigger audience that way by having the audiobook come out, and I'd probably say 6 months it'll be out, maybe sooner. But yeah, every day I wake up and think, well, how can I reach the next reader who would enjoy or benefit from this book? So,
Well, I think the audiobook is a really cool place because it's like you're creating like a radio play.
hmm
I look at it is and it has a different dynamic, and it catches like the audience that like is multitasking. They're on a plane, they're on a bus,
hmm
they're maybe a passenger in a car, and it gives them the ability to kind of get pulled into books.
yeah,
And in a world where maybe not everybody's reading where they were 20
yeah,
years ago, you can still get that literary audience in a different way.
yeah,
And it's super cool to actually get people pulled into books because I think books are still this pure form where you get this picture in your mind from words. It's
and
not
and
like
the voice of the author, and you I hope will not. I mean, we're not getting that from AI.
no.
So yeah, it is the one way to get the authentic voice of the creator um, in the writing world. Yeah, I'm excited. You're getting me even more excited to do this audiobook. Yeah.
Well, I think it's super important that being a musician, I kind of deal with audio, and we
hmm
deal with this idea of like sound painting or sound pictures or movies. That
Right.
when we create our work, we know that the audience is going to own it, and we might have had a vision for it, but once we put it out in the world, how they see the song is kind of like up to every person who experiences that song.
Yeah.
And still, like when you have a book, you have a certain point of view you're pushing, but once you give it to the reader, they're going to interpret it with their own life experience. So they take what they've experienced and then find parallels, and they find different aspects of it. And sometimes like audiences come back to a writer or readers go back to the writer, and they like like how I like this is how I saw your character. Have you ever had somebody come to you and tell you that something about your story that you didn't actually like? Wow, I didn't know they were going to take it that way.
Yes. Yes. Or just like I'm fascinated that um, there's this audience of 20-year-olds, 18 to 25-year-olds that are just gobbling it up and just sending me messages and how, I think because I go through that phase of my life in the book.
Like
And
resonating
so,
with them.
yeah, they're super connecting with the relationship piece of what I went through, even though it obviously is very unique to what they're going through, but the whole idea that as a young adult, that how to separate, and how to keep yourself whole and create your boundaries from maybe the people that raise you or other people in your life, and also keeping them um, whole as well. Actually, I'm using the words of a woman that actually wrote that to me. So, thank you, Gracie.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I
Yeah,
think
so I love that it's like connecting with the young people,
multi-generational. Like if
getting
you
those people reading.
well, yeah, if you get the young people reading, because they find something like they feel the synergy, they can see themselves, or they can understand, they have the empathy, or they recognize themselves
Mhm.
in the
Right.
story. Because a lot of times, like the connection between parents is like sometimes like you're told to honor them, and then sometimes you feel they don't honor you.
Right.
And then it's
Yes.
like that dichotomy of like, well, mind your elders. That your elders told you this, but with the elder is actually kind of going on the wrong path. I'm supposed to still mind that.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
Yeah.
well, how am I supposed to square that? Like with the whole respect for your elders and
Mhm.
the knowing this is your father, this is your mother. But then
Yeah.
if they don't actually fulfill that they kind of like the role that's like society says this is what they are.
Yep.
And
Back
then
to recognizing the humanity of our parents, right?
yeah,
They I think that's exactly what that reader was getting at in terms of like that stage of her life and finding, seeing her parents in a different light and reconciling that and creating her own path and her own identity. So,
yeah, I think everybody has that moment with their parents when the parents kind of maybe disappoint you. Like I think everybody, like even if you ever, there's always some moment where a parent disappoints a child, and the child's like, "Wow, I thought they were supposed to be represent this,"
mhm,
and then now they see there's like, "Whoa, they're not perfect."
right.
And then when you start to realize that what can you be okay with them not being perfect?
Hmm.
Does that wreck your whole world to find out they're not perfect?
It might for a little while.
Yeah, it's a hard.
I never had that experience. No, I did. I had my father on a pedestal for a long time. Yeah. And
Yeah,
it was
'cause that's
interesting. He failed me. There's no other way to put it as a father. When I was at home and living in the house, he was an amazing grandfather and he was a wonderful father late in life. But what was interesting to me was learning about, like, after he passed, he um, we heard a lot from the people whose lives he had touched, and he had changed the trajectory of their lives, and he made them smile every day on campus, and like all these quotes from people who experienced my father in ways that I'll never know, but it put him back up on that pedestal for me as a part of his life where he really succeeded, and I mean, that made me really proud.
like
Like,
full
it wasn't
circle.
like, why didn't he do that for me? It was like, this is good. This is where I thought he was, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah, because sometimes like you have parents like they give so much to outside the home, right?
Yes.
And then when they get back home, they don't have a lot to give in the home. So the world could see your father or your mother. And so I've had guests have been on. It's like people outside the home think the person's great. It's inspirational, and there's like within the home, there's like, well, they're kind of falling down,
Right.
because maybe they gave so much outside that by the time they come home, they have nothing to give.
I think that's a big part of it. And I think if you add in there's so much more emotional baggage with what's at home than what's outside, that I
Mhm.
think that, if you're talking about individuals who really haven't grown up because of their situations, like my dad and his childhood trauma and my mom and her mental illness, that they don't have any resources to draw upon to deal with the emotional strain of the relationships that really matter, the ones at home. And so I think that's where it can go wrong.
And that's why I think a lot of people like they romanticize that family structure, and they have idealized versions of what they think it should be.
Hmm.
And then everybody's like trying to meet that ideal, and then they fall flat because hey, it's not adding up to what they say it's supposed to be.
Right, which is why we have to share our stories. We have to be vulnerable and say, no, that's not how it is. And it's okay. You know, and
Yeah,
life can be ugly and messy and still meaningful and lovely, and we can find our way through it to something better.
yeah, I think it's real important because we have an age today where certain folks like you get these like bro culture that wants to hide weakness, that
Hmm.
wants to suppress any kind of vulnerability, and then call it whatever they want to call it. I won't say what they call it, but
Okay.
it's just like, to me, it's like it's not being strong to not be able to look in the mirror and know that you have issues and not even try to work on it, right?
Hmm.
To kind of paper over it and act like, well, I'm going to be Superman, right? I'm going to be like this. I'm going to be there, but you're really Clark Kent.
Yeah.
You're vulnerable. You're not as strong as you appear to be, right?
Mhm.
But you can't show anybody that. You got to be the Superman. And
Yeah. I
I
don't
think
know. That's gonna eat those people alive. I think that's not it's not good for your bodies, your brain.
nah, it's like hope they don't teach so many kids that path, like because we don't need the generations to be kind of going like we've already we're supposed. Well, I would have hoped we would have learned some lessons, and now people gonna have to learn them again. So it's
Over
like
and over. I
you have
mean,
to keep on repeating it because some people just want to deny reality.
mhm.
But like it's very important when we have folks like yourself, like you're putting this out. Like you did the work to like look at yourself, look at the looking glass, look at your family, look at the microcosm, get out to the macrocosm. The general society is going to benefit from a story that shows vulnerability and honesty and authenticity rather than making some, you know, like pie in the sky kind of blue sky story, which is
Yeah,
nice. Like everybody
yeah,
needs a blue sky story sometimes, but sometimes you need the hard truth.
yeah. And I think I approach it with like, uh, I never ever felt like a victim, and so the story does not come across like that at all. And I think that's where people have told me that they really like there's some dry humor in there. There's some levity, and they enjoy the humor in it. But ultimately, it's hard. They're hard stories, but they're told in a very accessible way, in a very compassionate way, and in a way that, like, hopefully will be entertaining as well as
Well, it's
inspirational.
multi-dimensional. So within something that if you have a story that has a lot of depth, then you're gonna show not just one thing. Like people always want to say it's on or off, it's black or white, it's yes or
Mm,
no. And a lot of things are in the shading, in the coloring. And life isn't always like one thing. It's like it can go up and down. It could be
right.
peaks and valleys. And so, like in any kind of movement, like in music, we have movements. We have music where there's like it gets a little harsh, it gets a little backed off. There's a space between the notes, but notes are all bunched up. Sometimes it's kind of telling a story. It's life.
Hmm.
Life's not perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect.
Right.
You experience the beauty and the pain and the heartache and the actual redemption points or things that humor.
Hmm.
They were multifaceted. It's just, so if you're telling life, it's going to be life.
Yeah.
It's going to be something that's not just one thing.
Right. Right. Yeah. There was a period in time when people were, I didn't really know kind of where my book fit into, people want to like, like what is your market or what type of book is it?
Yeah,
And
they want to know
clearly, I mean,
your
it's a memoir. I don't know who's going to enjoy it. It turns out like all sorts of demographics enjoy it. And so, but it's also like not just a literary memoir or not just like a commercial memoir. It's kind of a blend of the two. And so I've never really, that's one of the things that has been interesting about me marketing it is finding that.
And it's yeah. Well, people always want you like in music, they want to say, "Oh, what are you? Rock, country, jazz?" Like,
Yes, right. They want it's easy. They want to talk about it in a certain way that's easy.
but
And
if I
sometimes
tell
it's not easy.
yeah, when you tell them like, "Oh, it's expansive," it's like, "What's that?" I mean,
Nice.
across multiple genres, it's like, "Whoa, I can't market that."
Yeah. No, I think that is marketable though.
Yeah, that's the thing they want to tell you. Like, you have to be in the lane.
Yeah.
And I would like to argue, like, you don't always have to be in the lane because some people make a lane that's like cross lanes, cross genre.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like crossing multiple things. It has a little youth, has a little young adult, it has a little bit of, you know, like
Right.
anything in it, right? So any good blend of a human story
Hmm.
can't be defined by any single genre point, but you'll want to always dilute it down to, oh, it's this.
Yeah. Right. But
But
they
if
need to categorize it for
yeah,
whatever reason.
yeah.
Yeah.
But if you get people say it's a human story, you should read it because like you're a human being and do you want to know
Yeah.
more human stories? So it's about life and going through like what you need to go through. And like you're saying, like you're finding the humanity in your parents. Yeah, and that's I think that's something that a lot of people need to kind of looking glass self address. And I think there's a lot of people I think they can that will resonate. Like you said,
Mhm.
the youth market is resonating, with your book because they're finding that it rings true to them.
Yeah. And then turning around and caring for those parents at the end of their lives. And if you've done that work and you've forgiven them, if that's what you need to do, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, I think it's like giving people grace and giving your parents grace. It can be hard because like I know sometimes the biggest fight you have is with your dad or your mom.
Hmm.
With the son, it's like, oh, well, maybe it doesn't have to be a fight all day, all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. My dad and my brother, like it was tough terrain with those guys. There was no smooth pavement. They had a fist fight on the front yard, it just lots of things. And then at one point, my dad was just always just being super nice to my brother. Like my dad was in his 50s at the time, and I said, what's happened? Like you're so nice to Greg. And he said, I spent most of my life trying to fix him, and that didn't work.
so you let him be.
So I thought it'd be better just to accept him as he is. And it's been really good for our relationship. So I thought that was really powerful for him. He did continue to grow as a human being.
Wow, that's an awesome story because I think that's like a real turning point when people realize that you can't mold
Hmm.
and kind of force.
Right.
Like a lot of times, like people get this idea like, oh, I'm going to shape my soulmate. Like I'm going to shape him into my soulmate, or
Yeah.
I'm gonna retrain my dad. Like, oh, maybe,
Yeah.
or I'm going to retrain my son to be what I want my son to be.
Yeah.
And that maybe when you finally realize, like, oh, if we stop that, then maybe you can actually have a conversation.
Yeah.
But that's always, it's always like this big, like light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
like everybody like has something that you can relate to, even somebody you think is like doesn't understand you.
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you can finally start to break those walls and have some kind of conversation, have a discussion where you can get on the same page at some point. Or there's like maybe you're not on the same page, but we can agree that we can be on different pages.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's often the case.
That's really awesome that we've kind of come to the end of the hour mark, but
Okay.
it's I think it's like your book. It has a lot of depth to it, and you've talked about like what you've done with it, and I am very happy to get people to check it out at the links we have below. We do have like your website link and
Mhm.
your Instagram link.
Yeah, and if they want an excerpt of the book, they can just go to the website and sign up for the newsletter. And once a month, I put something out. It's not a big deal.
Oh,
They don't have to buy the book. They can just sign up and get an excerpt from the book.
okay, little excerpts. Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome. So they can check it out, and if they like it, go get the book.
exactly. Yeah.
But I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. I do appreciate it. We've been live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick, and we will be on all the other podcast channels where you can listen to or watch a podcast by the end of the day tomorrow. I want to thank you for being a guest on the Family Like the Ghost podcast.
Thank you, Phantom. It's really been an enjoyable hour. I appreciate you.
Thank you.